Kaye. John, I've been watching a U.S. prosecutor for several years, and I think you've been tremendously successful. Having to do with Asbury Park, I know you're successful there because I have a business in Asbury Park, and all the local people talk about you, the jump out boys and busting the drug dealers. And when you're in town, everybody knows it because things are quiet, and as soon as you leave, things start to pick up. Now, my question is, you've been tremendously successful in your operations. Is there some power of law that you have that the local police do not have? And how come it took so long to put this task force together to get at the root of the problem?
Yeah, quite frankly, we don't like to get involved with local matters. Monmouth County, like every other county, is comprised of local police departments, and they do a fine job. They resent, in a lot of cases, us getting involved. So what we normally do in the county is that we take care of what we consider to be those things that we have special skills in. For example, homicides and doing the forensic testing, white-collar crime, environmental, that sort of stuff. The things that the local towns can't do. I believe that the drug situation in Asbury Park is beyond the capability of the police department to handle. I really do. And we've been trying to kid ourselves for years and years and years that that department could do the job, and the answer is it's just too big. So that's how we got involved. Plus, the other thing was the idea for the jump out boys I only got a couple years ago when I was in Miami. I was really pretty much giving up on the whole drug deal. I thought it was a waste of time. We weren't making any progress, so I concentrated on other things. But when I saw what they did in Miami, I brought it back and said, let's try this one more thing. If this doesn't work, we're out of the drug business. Essentially, we were going to do something else and leave it to local police. But now it's become such a success, I'm sort of stuck with it, and we're going to keep doing it.
My other question is that Freehold happens to be the seat of the county. And as you mentioned before, I think most police departments that are having any type of drug problem, I think that they're at a disadvantage only because of the lack of funds. I think they're at a disadvantage because of a lack of manpower. From what I read and see on the streets, the drug business happens to be a tremendous business where people are making money hand over fist. So, of course, we're at a disadvantage. But is there something... Now, Freehold itself, which happens to be a fantastic town, the business owners are getting together and trying to market the town and to raise the standard of living. But we also have a drug problem in our town. There are certain areas where the drug dealers have infested the communities. The people are scared. The mothers are afraid to send their children to school, and if they do, they've got to walk them to school. And Freehold has a fine police department, no question about it. But I think that they're at a disadvantage.
They are. I'm born in Freehold. I'm born and raised in Freehold. In fact, my mother's family goes back about 150 years in Freehold. And I grew up in the town. I was the first Asbury Park Press paper boy there. They're trying. The TNT people, we're coming into Freehold Borough. Mayor Wilson asked us to come, and we're going to be there for at least a 4-week stint. But in the meantime, Chief Berlew has started running his own operation in the Spring Terrace, and they've made 20 arrests in 4 days.
They're doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, they sure are. And plus, we're helping them financially in that we've lent them some cars so that they can change their cars around. We've also provided them some video assistance and some money.
I think that the business community would not object, in fact, probably be very much in favor, and I'm talking about dollars and cents, of putting up the money because it's hurting our businesses. There's no question about it. There had been some problems in the last 3 or 4 months, homicides, and that was not the case years ago, and I don't really think it should be the case today. So I'm just telling you that I think that the citizens, the people who pay the taxes and try to maintain a standard of living in the community, there's no question that we're in favor of getting the whole mess cleaned up. And I think if it came down to dollars and cents, I, for one, would be very much in favor. I'd write the check.
Let me tell you a quick anecdote, if I got a moment. I was the only prosecutor like 3 or 4 days, and they put up a name plate for me to park on the side of a building downtown, right across from the American Hotel. It said, Prosecutor John Kaye, and I was really proud of that. That was my spot. So I went down there and I parked there. I went to lunch across the street at the hotel. I came out and I looked, and there were 3 guys standing in front of my car underneath the sign. And they're talking to each other, and I looked at the one guy, and I recognized he was one of my employees. I just met him. So I said hi to him, at which point he gave me a dirty look and walked away with the other 2 guys. And about an hour later, he called me and said, you know, you almost got me killed, boss. I was making a buy of cocaine. And that was at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, broad daylight. So,
well, I appreciate you giving me the time to speak with you, and you know, I'm in favor of getting the mess cleaned up, because it is the biggest problem that we do have nationwide.
I agree.
Thanks. I'm sorry. Thanks for your call.
Thank you.
Where am I going? 2? Sure. Oop, I'm sorry. Hi. You're on NJ Law.
Hi. I'm calling basically because my concern is I'm new to the Monmouth County area. I realize that a lot of people are also moving down to this area. It's becoming very popular. With crime increasing, I was just curious how the prosecutor and his office were going to be able to handle the demands, the size of his staff, and if there was going to be a need to expand it.
Yeah. You know, you're right about people moving down here. We have close to 560,000 people living in this area, and nationwide there are only 100 jurisdictions that have 500,000 people or not. There's a district attorneys, and there's 13 of them in New Jersey. But the answer is not my staff, although everybody wants to build their own little empire. I really don't need any extra staff. The problem is this: in the law enforcement, in order to make it effective, you need 4 parts. You need the police, you need the prosecutors, you need the courts, you need the prisons. If one part doesn't work, the system doesn't work. I can tell you 2 of the parts are working very, very well. The police are working great, I think. The prosecutors are doing a good job. The courts are not doing a good job, and the prisons are just awful. There aren't any prisons. There's no room, and that affects how the courts do their job. I mean, actually, the courts and the prisons are more or less tied together in the problem that they're having, and it is a serious, serious problem. And until we can get taxpayers in general to agree that you have to construct more prisons, we're not getting anywhere, because people that ought to be in prison, not for necessarily a long time, but some time to wake them up, they don't go at all. And most of the crime that we have are repeat offenders who are either in and out of the system, back on the street. And I really believe the problem is prisons. It's not manpower for police and us.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your call. On that note, we're going to pause again for a brief message, and we'll be right back with you, so please stay tuned. And don't hang up.
Don't be a clown in the street. Don't jaywalk. A message from the New Jersey State Division of Highway Traffic Safety and the New Jersey Police Traffic Officers Association.
Just what we needed, a flat clown. Okay. I never did like clowns anyways, just as well. Let me jump back to the phones so we can catch up on some of our calls. Are you John?
Yes.
Good.
Hey.
How
Yes.
you doing?
How you doing tonight?
Good.
I guess with these, that one gentleman you talked to before about the drug testing,
Right.
he was worried about if he was to smoke a joint on the weekend, if it would show up in his system on
Right.
Monday. I was stuck under that one dilemma one time. I work for a major concrete company based in Lakewood, and currently we have a drug testing policy for all new employees and random drug testing for present employees.
Oh, they do it random, John?
Yeah.
Huh.
I was caught up in that quagmire once. When I was hired, they had asked me if I did drugs, and I was truthful with them. I told me I smoked a joint about 4 weeks before I applied for the job. And they said, "Well, no problem. We'll let you swing for the first test." And I told them I don't do it no more. Well, the first test came along and I failed it.
Oh, so 4 weeks later it was positive. Yeah.
It was still. You were right. It was about 27, 28 days later. It was still showing up in my system, but
Yeah.
it was minute, but it was still showing up in my system.
Yeah.
So they brought me in for drug testing the second time.
And I remember you saying something before how when they do the drug testing, it doesn't show up on levels.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Yeah, well, the second test, the first test, the preliminary employment test they do, it doesn't show the levels, but the second test that they do does.
Well, then they spent some good money on your system then, John.
Yeah, they said they spent like $200. It cost like $200 each test.
Yeah, that's a big investment.
Yeah, well, apparently I was a good enough worker where they invested the next $200 in me, because the second time around I came up clean.
That's good.
Because, I guess, if enough employers do this testing, it would make your job a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah, and how did you feel? I mean, you knew that if you tested positive, you're gone, didn't you?
Yeah, well, that's what they told me. They wrote out like a formal letter saying that if I tested positive again, I would be fired. That gave me the incentive to stop, because I was smoking marijuana for years and years and years.
That's great.
And like you said, if you got, I got 5 kids to support, and I got, house payments and stuff like that to make. If you got the responsibility, you have to quit. And I had the responsibility, and I've quit. And this May will be almost a year since I've had touched any drugs or any alcohol or anything. So that was more or less my incentive to quit.
I'm glad you called, John. That's good.
But like I said, if this, if enough employers would get into the act, this would, make your job a hell of a lot easier, because then people out there wouldn't be buying drugs, wouldn't be dealing drugs, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
Thanks for your call.
Thanks, John.
Okay.
I think that is important. I think the demand side, as we've been saying, that's the whole bottom line. I mean,
he's the perfect example.
Yeah.
Exactly what I'm saying. The demand side's the only way. I mean, we hit troops down in Bolivia and Peru. We're spending all that money down there, and I watched some of those really exciting films on TV. What the DEA was doing. I mean, it's real, like cops and robbers stuff. That real adventure. Didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
It's nice, but it doesn't mean anything. And, the lady was talking about how when we're in Asbury Park and we jump out, boy, you make all those arrests and the city's real nice, and as soon as we're gone, they're all right back. Well, that's true.
Yeah.
And we spend a lot of money on that stuff.
And I can remember even when we'd use informants, which you have to do in that kind of business. And unfortunately, sometimes the informants would be giving us the opposing dealers so that they'd be off the street. Once they were off the street, then they had the whole block to themselves, which...
They're good businessmen.
I think we have Jill, I believe.
Yes, I didn't hang up, Kevin.
Hi, how are you?
Very good. Mr. Kaye, I wondered why all public service employees aren't routinely and randomly drug tested, and if an employee fails the test, goes through rehab and has a relapse, and they're subsequently fired, is their record of dismissal disclosed to prospective employers, and are they eligible for unemployment or welfare benefits?
I don't know about the last two. I think that welfare would be an independent question. But insofar as I'm concerned, I do disclose it. Now, public service employees covers a big, wide range, from people that work at the Pentagon down to a woman who is a crossing guard for a school system. The way we do it in Monmouth County is I test, my office tests. As far as I know, I am the only branch of county government that tests. I'm unaware of any other branch of government in the county that tests. And my rule is that I do disclose it to a prospective new employee, because I think it's important for them to know. Insofar as unemployment, I think they would be entitled. Even though the dismissal was appropriate and correct and based upon a violation of the rules, I think they probably would be entitled to unemployment. I'm not an expert in that field, so I really can't
But it's a violation of the law.
Yeah, but...
Not just the rules.
When I fired those 3 other young women, this was before I had my written rules, I fired the 3 of them for possessing cocaine at a office picnic. I know they all got unemployment, and I know that we contested it. And I don't think that the rules have gotten harder. My feeling is, if anything, they've probably gotten easier. So maybe that's something you ought to write to congressmen about, because they're the ones that would control that. And of course, in this county, you don't know who your congressman is from minute to minute. As I sit here, we don't know who my congressman is. But once we get that straightened out, I think that's the area where it ought to be.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks for your call. And we'll certainly announce that as soon as we can figure it out, so everybody knows who to write to. Arnold?
Yes.
Hi.
Good evening.
How you doing?
I'd like to ask John Kaye about the Freehold Raceway Mall.
It's a nice place.
The security for the mall.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the township is going to hire 2 policemen because of the security at that mall. I would be happy to pay for 2 policemen if they would patrol the township. And I would think that the mall should have its own armed security patrol and have the power to arrest and prosecute and do everything else that's necessary as a autonomous police department.
I thought they did. I live in Freehold Township, and I go to that mall every now and then, and I see private security around there. I'm rather surprised.
They're armed, though.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
They're not armed.
Oh no. But we had a case out of there, by the way, with shoplifters, and I remember that we dealt with their security people. I'm surprised to hear you say that, because I know at the budget time in Freehold Township, they had planned to lay off 3 new patrolmen, 3 patrolmen who had just been hired. And there was a big hoopla about it, and I was one of the people that complained about it. I made my feelings very well known to Mayor Avalon, she was the mayor back then. I think she still is, Dorothy Avalon's still the mayor. And as a result of a public uproar, that idea was dropped, and they kept those 3 young patrolmen. Knowing that they had that budget problem very short time ago, to hear that they're going to hire 2 more people, but who are going to just work at the mall?
Because of the mall.
Oh, okay. They're saying what's mall-related?
Right. Well, because the mall requires more police activity.
Well, there's no question it will. There's no doubt about that.
Since it sits in the township,
yeah.
The township is going to have to hire 2 more policemen. Of course, it affects our rate. But I have no objection to the rate for policemen if they were going to patrol the township.
Yeah.
I would think that with the mall coming in and a rateable like that, that they should have their own autonomous police force.
I happen to agree with you. I think that's absolutely...
Is there anything your office can do to influence?
Well, I'll call Fred Yon. He's the town administrator, and he's an old friend of mine. I'll give him a call. I'll tell you one thing. They are building a series of cinemas there at the entrance to the mall off of 537. And I don't know how many it is, but it's going to be like 10, 15, or 20 theaters, and they're going to eliminate the 2 other theaters in town. And that is going to be a law enforcement problem, because you're going to have large congregations of kids, even though the kids in Freehold Township are pretty decent kids. And throughout the county, there's still going to be problems whenever you get a group together like that. I'll give Fred Yon a call and ask him about what you said. I'm somewhat surprised to hear this.
It was in the paper.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for your call. That's interesting, too, because I believe Eatontown, if I'm not mistaken, they have a system where the mall kicks the town a certain percentage of a patrolman's salary, and they make that. In our town, the mall itself is in the zone. Sure. Yeah, it's part of a larger zone area, patrol area. Just because we've grown in leaps and bounds, and I don't think our police department's changed in size in the last 13 years.
Yeah,
or so.
You've been pretty set.
And what we've often talked about that, whether the mall should, because a lot of them, especially, I don't know what Freehold's doing, but I know when Seaview moved in, they got some unbelievable tax breaks. They didn't pay taxes for a certain X number of years. And I don't know too much about finances, so
We had a bigger law enforcement problem with Freehold Raceway. I mean, you have the mall there, of course, but the Freehold Racetrack, which was a bigger burden on law enforcement than this mall is, has been located in Freehold for over 100 years. And what they did, the legislature, in fact, when Al Beedleston was the senator from this county, which is quite some time ago, he had a law passed where a percentage of the tax assessed was split between the 2 towns. Freehold Raceway happens to be partially in Freehold Borough and partially in Freehold Township. There's no such thing for malls. But I know in Eatontown, there are certain arrangements that the mall has with the PBA to do certain things off-duty or in their own time. I know one thing is they run red lights from time to time, and they do other police-oriented work there, but as independent contractors, not under the auspices of the police department.
I see. Okay.
And I encourage that, because if the police weren't doing that to earn extra money on their off time, the town would have to go out and pay taxpayers dollars to do the same work anyway.
Correct. Yeah.
So I'll ask Fred about that.
Yeah, and that new mall is nice.
It is nice. It's very airy.
I've been out there.
Yeah,
I kind of like it myself. Do we have Bernard? No, we don't. Hi, you're on NJ Law. Who are you? They're gone. Okay.
Anthony, plea bargaining in Monmouth County.
I'm sorry.
Why is there so much plea bargaining cases in Monmouth County?
Yeah, I lost something.
Hello?
Hi, is this Bernard?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Bernard. I didn't catch all of your question.
I would like to ask John Kaye, why is there so many plea bargaining for murders and drug cases in Monmouth County?
Yeah, we don't look at it as a bargain, by the way. That's an unfortunate phrase. We plea negotiate the great majority of our cases just like every other office in the nation. And I would say that we work it out, it probably works out that we probably plea negotiate about 90% of all of our cases. But we do it according to a written standard, which everybody has in advance. We have a reputation here for being a little too tough in our negotiations. In fact, the people from the parole board say that the only reason that they exist is to even up Monmouth County's sentencing. And the reason we do it is very practical. We handle over 10,000 cases a year, out of which we indict maybe 4,000 adults, and there's about 1,500 to 2,000 juvenile formal cases. We only have 4 judges. That's it. Okay. 4 judges sitting. Now you figure one of the judges, he handles administrative matters, so he's not really sitting. So now you got 3 judges. They get sick, they take vacations, they do other things. We got 3 judges and 10,000 cases? And there's just no way. Plus, the other thing is the majority of these people are guilty. I mean, they did it. We all know they did it. Everybody knows they did it. I'll tell you one thing we don't do. We don't negotiate murder cases. We may negotiate a case that's a killing, but it's not necessarily a murder. They end up being manslaughter cases. A murder case means that I don't know him, and I'm after him, and I shoot him down, or I cut his throat, or I do know him, and I go after him. We have a lot of killings in this county that are fights, alcohol's involved, people lose their better senses, domestics that get out of hand. Those things end up being manslaughter cases, and they do because we know when we try these cases over the years, that's what the juries give us. Mm-hmm. So the feeling that I have is that we only negotiate a case to what we anticipate a jury will give on this case. In a lot of cases, we have evidence problems. I mean, so we have to get the best we can. But believe me, I don't look at this lightly. I would prefer to try every single case, every one. Okay. But, you know, sometimes it's just not worth it. If we get the result, then we take it.
Okay, one more question. Do you consider retiring and going to be a judge? Or?
Well, let me tell you, before I became prosecutor, I'd been offered a judgeship 11 times. And I think it was an attempt to get rid of me. Since I've been prosecutor, they haven't offered it to me anymore. I guess they think they got tired of me telling them no. My idea is that if I leave the prosecutor's office, I would not go on the bench. I don't think that that would be a career that I would find suitable for my personality. Quite frankly, I'd look to go back into the practice of law, back in Freehold, where I'm from, where I started my life, and I think I would probably enjoy getting into some politics too, quite frankly, although some people say I'm already in it. But I wouldn't go on the bench. I would rule that out.
But if you do retire, I hope Mr. Stacy do take over. He's a consistent prosecutor.
Oh, Alan, yeah, he's a tough guy too, isn't he?
Yeah, he's the best.
Okay, thank you. That's
nice.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for your call.
Okay, thank you.
Would they be calling you "Put him away, Kay"? If you
no, I hope not.
We have Jim on line 2. How are you?
Hello.
Are you here? I'm sorry.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. My question is directed to Mr. Kaye. With all the towns in Monmouth County, wouldn't it be more efficient to have a county police force rather than all these individual local police departments?
Yeah, that's really a loaded question. Why didn't they disconnect you? There is an argument both ways, and I represented many municipalities before I became prosecutor, and I know the strong feeling of local pride and home rule. I also recognize the efficiency that comes with a more centralized system. However, in this county, we have 53 municipalities in this county, 48 police departments. That's the second largest in the state. The only other county that's larger is Bergen. We are very blessed here in that our local police departments happen to be very good at what they do. That can't be said everywhere else. I think that ultimately you're going to see more and more regionalization. We're already having it. We already do things on a regional basis. For example, anytime we have a hostage situation or a SWAT team situation, we already have regional SWAT teams. The local police departments send people to me, and that's how I can do the narcotic strike force. That's not my people. That's local police officers that come to Freehold, trained by us, and sent out in the field by us. I have sent people to DEA. I am now working with another task force with the FBI to pick up people on warrants. So I send people to them, and so do the locals. We also have one working between Ocean County, the state police, and us, where we're going to start working down the shore areas this summer. So regionalization is already in the works. It's not in the works insofar as abolishing a particular department and making it no more. What we're doing is we're taking people from all over the place and putting them to fulfilling regional goals. Now, in a sense, the sheriff's office has a police department, and that is regional in scope, but there is a great resistance to permit the sheriff's officers to do local police work. And you can probably understand why. But I'll tell you, I think this is going to be a long time coming where you would actually see towns eliminate their police departments, although there are a few towns that are very, very small and could probably end up doing it. And I think you know the ones I'm talking about. There's
right, I read an article in the paper speaking about those two towns.
Probably 4 or 5 towns, which might, in the next decade, do it. But it's almost like having a sports franchise. You know, if you lose your police department, people will really lose their identity. They feel like, God, the town's gone. You know, so it's not an easy answer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your call, Jim. Oh, that is interesting. Regionalization. Every time I have the chiefs on, they get nervous when I start.
Well, they don't mind it. They just want to know who's going to be chief.
As long.
Right? Yeah.
We have one more call, and then I think we're just about done. Good evening.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
I have a question for Jim. I have a scenario. Here's the scenario. I called the police department early morning hours and said that someone had their hands inside my house, inside the window of my home. When I made the phone call to the police officers, they sent 2 cars over, and they did not catch or apprehend the suspect.
Okay.
The vehicle to which the suspect was driving was parked out front of my house. Okay? At the time, they didn't run the plate. They said they'd take a look at it, and they continued the investigation. About a half hour later, I apprehended the suspect, called the police. They came back to my home. They, at that time, identified the suspect and knew the suspect as a personal friend, okay, and gave him a ride home. And my options at that time from the police headquarters or from the police officer was that I could come down to police headquarters and file a complaint against trespassing. Now, I want to know if my option was trespassing or attempted burglary.
Okay.
And then after that, we're just hear me through. After that, I waited about an hour or two. I went to police headquarters, okay, and I went in there, told them that I wanted to press charges on not trespassing, but attempted burglary. At the time, they didn't give me that option. Also, at the time, they had asked whether or not I had been drinking.
All right.
Okay.
Time out.
Sure.
We're going to have to roll out of the show here because we're out of time. But hang on the line here, and I'll answer your question as soon as we're done. Okay?
Okay.
For myself and Prosecutor Kaye, I want to thank you for your calls. Thank you for coming. And I know you got wet. Sorry. And see you next time. God bless. Take care of yourselves.